Hello, and welcome to the Bamboo Lab podcast with your host, peak performance coach, Brian Bosley. Are you stuck on the hamster wheel of life, spinning and spinning, but not really moving forward? Are you ready to jump off and soar? Are you finally ready to sculpt your life? If so, you've landed in the right place. This podcast is created and broadcast just for you. All of you strivers, thrivers, and survivors out there. If you'd like to learn more about Brian and the Bamboo Lab, feel free to reach out to explore your true peak level at www.bamboolab3.com.
Welcome, everyone, to this week's episode of the Bamboo Lab podcast. As always, I'm your host, Brian Bosley. And today we have an amazing guest. I'm so excited to have her on because I was in a bookstore this winter and I was getting ready to purchase a specific book. And I heard this lady walk in and ask the gentleman at the counter about this author. And he said, yeah, we have some of her books over here. And I walked over to her and said, well, hey, tell me about this. Because we were getting ready to have a storm in upper part of Michigan. And I was going to be home for the weekend. And I just needed a good book. And I walked up to her and said, well, hey, tell me about this. Oh, she goes, she's awesome. She's a local author. She's moved away for years and came back home and bought a house here in the area. So I picked up her book, a novel called Delta County. We'll talk about it in a little bit. But today we have Jamie Lynn Hyde on the podcast. Her pen name is J.L. Hyde. So when you search for her books today, it'll be J.L. Hyde. She's got 7 books published. And here's the cool thing. She published these all since COVID. She started writing again during COVID, and she has published 7 books. And when you go on Amazon, you will see that her average rating is 4.6 stars. That's pretty unbelievable. I look at ratings of people's books before I buy them, so I know what a good rating is. She also, like me, is a graduate of Central Michigan University. Then she spent time living in Oklahoma and Arkansas, and recently moved back to the great Upper Peninsula of Michigan. So, Jamie Lynn Hyde, welcome to the Bamboo Lab podcast.
Oh, thank you so much, Brian. I'm so happy to be here.
Man, I'm telling you, I'm so impressed. So we'll start. I want to talk a little bit about Delta County here in a minute because I want the audience to really. I think that's probably a good book to start with. It maybe it's because it's the first one I read of yours. But before we do, can you tell us a little bit about yourself? You know, where you're from, your family. I guess I know a little bit where you're from, but your family. What you were like as a child. What inspired you to become the writer you are today?
Oh, sure. Absolutely. I mean, my older sister might have a different answer of what I was like as a child, but I'll tell you to the best of my knowledge. So I was raised here in Delta County. My parents owned a bar and grill, and we lived upstairs when I was a very young child. And like you said, I went to Central Michigan University, graduated in 2006 with a degree in PR. And was in the restaurant business, all of my adult life until I became an author during the pandemic. So for about 20 years, managing restaurants 70 hours a week was the gig, and lost my job during the pandemic, as many people did, and decided to pivot and kind of thought, this is the first time I'm going to have free time in my adult life. I'm going to go for it. What's the worst that can happen? And now we're here 7 books later.
I've been trying to write a book for 15 years. I can't imagine 7 books in 3 years. No, go ahead.
Well, my common answer to that is I'm used to working like 60 to 80-hour work weeks in the restaurant business. So now that all I'm doing is writing books, it's just an easy thing to get done when every morning I'm writing. So I put out about 2 to 3 books a year. And it's been pretty easy to stick to that schedule because I'm used to the long hours.
Yeah, that's a good point. Do you find that being back in your home area provides you more inspiration?
1000%. Yes. So we have only been back, 8 months this week. I released a book, that I was finishing as we moved here. So Grady Lake came out, I think like the month we moved here. And then the sequel just came out in February. And now I'm writing the 3rd book in that series. So that'll be 3 books released since we've moved home. So I'm very inspired here.
That book is done really well.
Yes, it surprised me. I didn't even really want to write a series, and the readers kept asking for one. So I thought, okay, this was like my first planned series that I had written, and these first two books in the series have been my best releases to date. So
that's so good.
Exciting.
And your books, are they all on audiobook as well?
They all are, except for my very, very first novel. It's called Underground, but it's being recorded right now.
Wow. Now, let me ask you, the book Delta County, the one I read, and I'm going to get the second one to this summer of 69 or summer of 99?
99.
Okay.
Yep.
I'm going to order that when we're done today. Is that character a little bit loosely based off of your life experience?
I get that a lot.
When you were talking, like, it kind of reminds me of Heather, and she moves away and comes back, and I mean, you were gone.
Sure.
You were gone from home when you wrote this book. Clearly, you weren't back in the UP, but I just kind of saw some of the similarities, and I wondered that when I read the book, because I had seen the picture of you in the back of the book, and that's who I pictured Heather to look like when I was reading the book.
I didn't plan it when I was writing it. I mean, of course, some of the experiences were loosely based on my life and my experience with my friends growing up here, but I didn't expect so many people to make that connection until it came out. And they said, I just pictured you the entire book. So that was not my intention. It's just very loosely based on my life.
Sure.
But yeah, there's definitely a lot of similarities between Heather and I.
Yeah. Now, when you were growing up, was there ever an inspiration for you to become? I know you liked to write when you were younger, I think. What was the inspiration for you to now become this writer now, other than pandemic and the restaurants were probably shut down and things like that? So was there ever a click in your mind? Did you meet an author when you were young? Did you read a book when you were younger that really kind of made you think, I might want to write someday?
Well, growing up, R.L. Stine he was my author. He was my favorite author. And so my pen name is kind of a nod to him, J.L. Hyde, R.L. Stine. That's how I chose my pen name. And Jamie Lynn just sounds a little bit too friendly for a murder mystery writer. So R.L. Stine was definitely my inspiration growing up. Stephen King as I got a little bit older. But the truth is, I always answer this question the same. No, I did not dream of being an author because that was too big of a dream. and that's the truth. I mean, my biggest dream was just doing anything other than managing a restaurant. I was so burnt out. I was so uninspired. So the idea that I could work for myself and write for a living would just be too big of a dream to even imagine. It's not something that I sat in my room and even considered until the pandemic happened. I lost my job about a month and a half into the pandemic when all the restaurant groups were doing layoffs. And I was just really down on myself. I'd never lost a job before. I was very good at my job, and it was just very defeating. And so I was kind of feeling sorry for myself. And I was sitting outside reading a book. The book is, I'll never forget it. The book is called The River at Night by Erica Forensic. And I sat there from midday until maybe midnight outside reading this book because I could not put it down. And it just made me forget. It made me forget how rough life was treating me at the time and everything that was going around and, all the people that were hurting. It just kind of made me forget all the problems for a minute. And that's the first time it really clicked in my head, is that I want to try to do this for other people. I want to write a book that is so good that they just cannot put it down and they forget about, the crappy day they had at work or their husband that's driving them crazy. I want to provide an escape for other people. And I was already very true crime obsessed. I am Dateline's #1 fan. And so I already had that sort of passion. And those were the kind of books that I read. I had a little bit of a writing background in college. At CMU, I wrote for the school paper. So I was already pretty well read, but I had no experience in writing novels at all. So for the next 6 months, I just really dove into trying to learn everything there was about writing a novel. I read Stephen King's book called On Writing, where he just, kind of gives his best advice. I really went on Reddit. I went on the Amazon publishing pages and just kind of stalked those forums for a good 6 months and just tried to learn from others' mistakes and learn some best practices before I even dove into this thing. And then with only telling about 3 people in my life, I started writing Underground.
Well, I'm going to comment on Underground. I have not read it, and I know you don't read your reviews, but I just pulled it up here as we're talking, and it just shows it's 4.4 star rating, which is high. The first three reviews, one is an Amazon review that says, I could not put this book down, and I read it cover to cover in a few hours. A Goodreads review said, this is the best book I've read in a while. JL is now one of my favorite authors. And another Amazon review said, Underdog is a well-written novel that will keep you on the edge of your seat.
That is really sweet.
It's right. Yeah, I just pulled it up. I didn't know you read it. You wrote Underground because when I was researching you, I kept seeing Underground as like it would show what I thought were 6 books that you've written, and I saw that, but I didn't think it was yours, and I just never until you mentioned you wrote 7 novels. That's awesome.
Yes. Well, it's so surprising that it still has that high of an average because I've learned so much in these 4 years that I look back and I'm almost ashamed of Underground. Like it's not that well written. I made a lot of mistakes. I couldn't afford an editor. I couldn't afford a cover designer. But they say, any author worth their salt will look back at their early work and be a little embarrassed. So I'm just really thankful that people are still buying it and still connecting to it.
Well, what's interesting, when I look at Amazon reviews, they always show the Goodreads reviews next to it. And Goodreads are almost always dramatically lower. Like you can get a 4.8.
Yeah, because they're a bunch of meanies.
It is. But you're on Goodreads. Underground is a 4.2.
That really surprises me. Yeah, I mean, Goodreads is like the reason I quit reading reviews because some people on that site, I swear to you, they are mean for the sake of being mean, not just to me, but now I've made author friends and reading their reviews makes me angry for them. So I have just stopped.
I don't blame you. Joe Rogan always says, never read reviews or comments. And that's that's the truth. Smart move.
So I look at the overall star rating to make sure I'm doing okay. I'm still selling enough books to pay my bills, so I'm doing all right. So there's no benefit in me reading reviews. No. There's no benefit.
Nope,
so I have just stopped.
Well, I'm reading them for you, so you don't have to. I'll filter them out. I liked what you said. I want everybody to hear this. I never dreamed of being an author because that was too big of a dream.
Absolutely.
That's incredible. But now you've got 7 books published, taking off like a rocket. Now think of all of us out there that have thought that, have had this little dream or this little nudge in our soul that said, oh, I kind of want to do this, but it's too big of a dream. If anybody feels that, I want them to think of Jamie right now and think of where she's at.
Please do. And I say that a lot. I was managing a dang Applebee's for years. I mean, this is what I was doing just a few years ago. I have no connections in the literary business. I do not come from money. I do not have an Ivy League education. I mean, nobody handed this dream to me. I can promise you that. So if I can do it, whatever it is you are dreaming of, whether it's writing a book or, auditioning to be an actor or starting your own business, trust me, you can do it. And if anybody is telling you that your dream is too big, that is a person that doesn't need to be in your circle. You don't need those kind of people.
What if it's themselves telling them to do that it's too big? Kind of like it was for you. What do you do?
Yeah, man, I joke. Yeah, you do, because imposter syndrome never goes away. I've sold a lot of books. I've had the film rights option for one of my books, and I still every day am thinking, am I good enough to do this? So that's something that never really goes away. But you just have to work on quieting it. And I read some really good advice about 6 months ago that has just really stuck in my head. And it said, when those thoughts pop into your head, picture them like static, like a TV that's going staticky and just disappearing, and a curtain closes on them. And you make those thoughts disappear from your mind. So I have done that with any sort of negative thoughts. I just kind of visualize them staticking out, the curtains closing in front of them, and I am done with that thought. And I just replace them with positive thoughts. And it's really, really served me well.
That's a beautiful idea.
Mm-hmm. I wish I remembered who wrote it.
Yeah, I actually, coincidentally, I coached 2 different clients this morning on imposter syndrome, which is
really,
yeah. I every once in a while I will, because I have a subject matter on it. But today, 2 particular clients on that one subject this morning, my 8:30 and I think my 9:30 session this morning. So then you bring it up for the 3rd time today, and because that's something I have faced a lot. Because I look at imposter syndrome as kind of 2-sided. One is you don't feel like you deserve it. And one is you feel like once you get it, you're going to be exposed as a fraud. And I have felt both of those since I was, oh my goodness, probably my entire life. But my former boss 28 years ago, told me that. He said, every time you have success, you F it up. You self-implode. And at the time, there was no imposter syndrome out there. We didn't know what that was. But it wasn't until 27 years ago or 28 years ago when I started my consulting firm, I started seeing this subject matter of that wasn't called that. It was called something else. And I thought, man, it's fear of success. It's this discomfort with success or happiness or great health or love or whatever it might be. And then the title of imposter syndrome came out, and they started a lot of books. Harvard Business Review did a full study on it last summer and put a big periodical out in their summer issue last year on imposter syndrome. And I was in Lansing, and I found it at Barnes and Noble and bought it. And it's a great, 15 articles condensed into one periodical by different experts on the subject matter. Because I think, honestly, the vast majority of the people I've coached in 27 years, including myself, face imposter syndrome on a regular basis. And like you said, it never really does go away. You just have to quiet it. Mm-mm. And I really like your example, static, curtain shutting, move on.
I do. And you just have to tell yourself, if I focus on this, I'm feeding it. I'm feeding it and it's going to grow. And how is that contributing to the life I want? It's not. Doubting myself is not contributing to anything good. So you just kind of have to shake it off. And I hate to overuse the phrase fake it till you make it, but it's the truth. Just, lie to yourself, say, I belong here. And when, especially as an author, whenever you start to grow a bigger audience, it's overwhelming. So like convincing yourself that you deserve it and you've worked for it is a very, very hard thing when you're not an egotistical person.
Well, and I think that's for you. I mean, your success has come rapidly. I mean, in 3 years. Yeah.
It's overwhelming.
Do you ever worry that will go to your head?
Oh, no.
No.
I don't have it in me.
Person.
No, I that is one thing I am certain of. And I also have family and friends that would absolutely dog me if I ever started to have an attitude. No, I am certain it will never, ever go to my head.
You always have to keep those people in your life that have seen you at your worst.
Yeah, they remind me.
Remember who you are at times.
They're not impressed. And it's very, very funny for my friends that I grew up with around here to have, their coworkers say, oh my gosh, you're friends with J.L. Hyde. And they're like, Jamie? They're just permanently unimpressed by me. So that will keep me humble forever.
Well, and I think, but there is an advantage there's a big advantage to not reading any reviews. And I don't read any reviews of the podcast. I did at the beginning, when they were filtering in few and far between.
Sure.
And then I was listening to Joe Rogan, and on his podcast, he said, I don't read any reviews. Of course, he's at a whole new stellar level. And I said, that's a good idea. But there is somewhat of an advantage to reading some of the bad reviews at times. But also, who's going to leave a bad review? It's mostly disgruntled people who've got a lot of time on their hands. I really don't want I don't want to be impressed by them or imprinted by them. It's like,
exactly. Exactly.
If you don't like it, don't read it. If you like it, if you love it, read the next book and comment on it.
And that's the truth. And so I task my friends and family with, like, my sister reads my reviews, my best friend reads my reviews. And I said, if you ever see a common theme among the bad reviews, like there is something I'm consistently doing that I need to change, please, by all means, tell me. Right. But if it is just like, random complaints that somebody, I think the first bad review I ever received was that the book Delta County promoted alcoholism. And it's like these guys were back in town for their 10-year high school reunion in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. Yeah, they went to a bar. What? This is an accurate portrayal of what happens at a 10-year reunion in Upper Michigan. So and guess what? It kept me up half the night. I wanted to know who wrote the review. I wanted to explain myself to them. And it kept me up half the night. And then that first year I read all my reviews. And when I would get a not so great one, I mean, it made me sick. It made me forget all the good ones that I received. And sooner or later, I just realized this is no way to live. I can't do this anymore. No. So I just kind of stopped cold turkey, and I am in a much, much, much better place for it.
Well, I'm assuming you're also more creative because you're not being influenced by someone's negative
right.
review. And I really do believe this. I mean, I'm not one that's going to walk up to somebody and somebody has a really nice jacket on. I'll say, hey, that's a cool jacket. If somebody has an ugly jacket, I'm not going to walk up to them and say, your jacket sucks. You know,
Right.
a person who would do that to me, there's no benefit to it. I mean, I get people want to see good and bad. Some people want to, but I just don't. I never understood leaving bad reviews. I think I've left one on a book one time because it was so poorly written that I couldn't get through it. It was just so many edited issues. I'm like, dude, this book has to be. It's a good book. Re-edit it. Go through the editor or an editor even the first time. But yeah, that's ridiculous. So, Jamie, since you moved up here, let's even go back to the last couple of years of your life. What has been your greatest learning?
Oh, gosh. I think in the transition to moving up here, which I said, I believe it's been about 8 months. The biggest transition is I think about kind of how miserable I was towards the end there in Oklahoma. The weather was really getting to me. And, you know, I had worked in the restaurant business for a long time, for a couple not so great bosses, had no free time. I was overworked, missed a lot of events, you know, missed a lot of weddings, funerals, birthday parties, vacations, because of that. And I just thought if I could move home to Michigan and no longer have to work in the restaurant industry, I will never want for anything else in my life. So I think my biggest lesson is now that I'm here and I have got, you know, quote unquote, everything I've wanted, that is not a magic bullet to, okay, I am permanently happy now and nothing will ever bother me again. You know, so it's an interesting thing when you begin to get the things that you've wanted for so long. Life is still hard. You know, you don't just magically wake up to birds singing every morning and you don't have a care in the world. I mean, yes, my life is infinitely better than it was years ago, but there are still struggles. You know, I'm not on easy street all the time. So I think that's been my biggest lesson is that, you know, assuming the grass is greener on the other side isn't always completely accurate. And it is wonderful to work hard for things and get those things that you want, but that just doesn't mean your life is going to become easy.
I'm just fascinated. I love that, by the way, because I think you're exactly right. And I've seen this over the past 30 years of my career, coaching people as well as experiencing it myself. As you get the things you want, life is better, but it's still difficult. The challenges are still there, and some are different challenges. Some are greater challenges even.
Sure.
But I'm fascinated by how you went from managing restaurant at Applebee's for so long with probably not a lot of accolades. I mean, people weren't commenting on Amazon. You weren't getting movie rights potentially. People weren't talking
Nobody
about
knew who
you.
I was.
Nobody was saying, oh, you know J.L. Hyde? She's the manager at Applebee's.
Right.
To now, that's a big transition.
Man, it is strange. And like in the last year, it's really kind of really catapulted just to just a lot more people knowing my name. And it is strange. It's the best way. I am so appreciative. I am so grateful of everybody that approaches me and says nice things and emails me and, you know, whatnot. But it is a strange life. And I just was not really prepared for it. I always joke, you know, I started an argument online the other day because there are a group of readers that are very upset with the fact that in Delta County, we shortened Heather's name to Heath, like her friends call her Heath.
Yeah.
And there is just a group of online commenters who said they have known Heathers their entire lives and nobody calls them Heath. And that was such a weird nickname. And I'm like, am I in the Twilight Zone here? Like, what is going on? And it caused like this huge argument. And so finally I said, look, when I wrote this book, nobody knew who I was. I expected to sell 20 copies, not 20,000. Like I never thought there would be a day where there are these like group of older women in Massachusetts yelling at me for the nickname that I chose for my main character. I mean, what a weird life.
But you know, you're on the right side of the problem. That's a problem, but that's a good problem to have. When they're not talking about the quality of the writing, or they're talking about the shortening, taking an ER out of Heather and turning it into Heath.
Yeah, and you know, I think that. Oh yeah, and they said I shouldn't have spelled it Heath, and I'm like, look, I named it after my childhood friend, and that is what we have called her and how we have spelled it our entire life. So I'm so sorry. But I think what you just said really sums it up. I still have a lot of problems, but they're good problems to have.
Yeah.
It's like any issues that I have right now. I just got a huge tax bill from the IRS, but you know what? That's a good problem to have because it means I'm making money. So I do have some frustrations and some issues in my life, but they're good problems.
I bet you wake up sometimes and think, I should pinch myself. Is this really real? I better go check to see if these books are out here.
Every morning.
Isn't that crazy?
Every morning. And it's just surreal. And, I joke that the only time I've set an alarm in like the last year was when one of my friends asked me to go to an early breakfast. I feel like I just don't have to set an alarm. I don't. And every day I'm like, how is this possible? I mean, my time, like I said, 60 to 80 hours a week belonged to somebody else for 20 years. For 20 years, everything I did was for somebody else, was making money for somebody else, doing what somebody else told me I had to do. And so waking up and choosing how to spend my day is the greatest joy of my life.
Well, also,
it's fantastic.
Jamie, I mean, what you did before was an honorable profession, managing. I mean,
Sure.
It is.
It's not easy.
No, it's not easy. But what you're doing now, just take the amount of value you are providing to the world now compared to what it was 5 years ago. You're giving the gift of the written word, which I don't think there's a better gift out there. I really don't. I really believe, and I told you before we started recording today that books are my passion. Books and hiking are probably my two favorite things to do, and or reading books. And I have told my kids, I said, the more you read, the better you speak. The more you read, the more you understand human nature, because you understand that there's no all good or all bad in people. You get to experience the life of a fictional character and go through a journey with them. And if that can inspire you to become a better person or understand yourself or others more effectively, then really nothing can. There's no education better than picking up a book and reading it.
Absolutely. And I always try to tell people that I never shame somebody for not reading. I just say, you don't know what you're missing.
Right.
Reading it, I mean, you get lost. You can get lost. You learn, you experience different lives, different places. I have read so many Ellen Hildebrand books set on Nantucket. I feel like I've been there. Like I can picture the layout of the island in my mind. I mean, books just are an escape. So when people say, oh, I haven't read a book in 20 years, I pity them just for the sheer fact of they're missing out on how wonderful it is.
I couldn't agree more. My son, Dawson, he's finished his third year up at Northern Michigan just last week. And he's always been a reader, but he'd go through spurts growing up. He always saw me read, so he would go through spurts, and he read Jonathan Rand's books, Michigan Chillers, American Chillers. He read Percy Jackson. When he was younger, and he read. But then last November, he called me. Goes, Dad, I'm going to start reading. I'm going to read a lot this year. So I think he read in the last 9 months. He's read 12 books. But they were, he read all the Harry Potters again. He read Steve Hamilton. He's an author. He's out of, I think, New York City, but he writes about the Upper Peninsula.
I have a few of his books. I haven't read them yet, but I just bought
Paradise.
them. Yes, they're up in my room on the nightstand. I just haven't got around to reading them yet.
Jamie, they're good.
They're
really good books. They're really good books. I like yours better, but I'll be honest with you. And Steve has not been on my podcast yet, so he probably never will be after that.
Now he's not going to. Sorry, Steve.
And he read a Stephen King one, Billy Sumner, I think, Billy Summers or something recently.
Yeah.
That's my next
read. That was really big last year. Yeah.
And now he's reading Game of Thrones, the first one. And
that's ambitious.
Yeah. He's been He's been flying through it every morning. He gets up. He and his girlfriend, Jamie, just got rented a house. They went to Hawaii for spring break, and they didn't have a place to live next year. And so I'm like, well, you kind of have to get a place to live. Places go quickly. Marquette's not a big town.
Oh, yeah.
And they got back within a week. They found the most beautiful little 900 square foot home right on the road to go to Presque Isle on the. And you literally walk out their door, walk across their lawn, cross that little street, and you're on the beach, the main beach in Marquette. It's
how magical is
50
that? 50
yards away from their front door, 60 yards away. And it's all windows. They get to see the sun, and it's beautiful. And they have a big, like a 3-stall garage that is that they can, hang out with their friends in, play beer pong, all that kind of stuff, And they have a basement. I spent 3 nights this weekend up there in their guest room, and it's just the most beautiful, bright place. So he said, Dad, it's so fun to get up in the morning at this new place and sit here with my feet up, looking out at the water, the sunrise. I got my coffee and I got my book in my hand. I'm like,
did you tell him that the places you and I lived at Central Michigan were not so picturesque?
They were so good. Well, the last house he lived in last year, he had 2 roommates. My son is he's kind of a neat freak. He likes to keep things clean, but his roommates are great guys, but they weren't really very clean. So he was always getting upset.
Sure.
Dishes here and that dirty. It smells like cat pee. And but it was nothing like the places we lived at Central. No way.
It made us better people. It gave us character.
I remember, Jamie, like the first week we moved into the rugby house, somebody threw up in the bathroom, upstairs bathroom during a party. That vomit was still there when we moved out 9 months later.
I believe it because I've met guys like you all 4 years.
Yeah, trust me.
I believe that.
Like I said prior to the recording, I'm really glad that you went to Central a few years later because I think I would have been in one of your books as one of the villains.
Yeah. You're safe.
Right. I'll stay on my best behavior now. So this next question is my favorite question to ask because it sometimes gets to the heart of a human being. And the question is, what would you say is one of the most difficult things you've ever gone through in your life? And then how did you overcome it?
Oh, God. Oh, losing my parents, for sure. I lost my mom at a very young age. I was in high school. And then I just lost my dad in 2019. And, you hear all sorts of stories of people who had horrible childhoods, and then it just really gave them a lot of character. Well, I had a wonderful childhood. I have no childhood trauma at all. I mean, I just, my parents were divorced, when I was 2 or 3, but I split my time with them. I had 2 wonderful parents. My mother passed away very unexpectedly when we were in high school, and my dad and I became best friends. I mean, we just kind of leaned on each other. And so we're very close. So I think losing them with my mom, I had no notice. With my dad, we had 15 months from when he was diagnosed with lung cancer to when he passed. So we had time to say goodbye. But I don't think one was any easier than the other. So I think without a doubt, losing my parents just really has kind of shaped most aspects of my life, for sure.
And when you moved back 8 months ago, was it hard to come home now that they're not here at all?
Oh, yes. Especially my mother, because my dad is from Arkansas and moved up here and met my mother. But my mom was born and raised here. And everything reminds me of her. Everything does. I come from a big family here. My mother was a Menard and had 9 siblings. So just, I mean, everywhere, everything and half of them are gone now. So everything reminds me of her and my aunts and uncles. And, so that was tough, kind of coming back. And, usually I'm just here on vacation and I can kind of shake it off, but seeing it every day, the house that we bought is a mile away from the neighborhood I grew up in. So it's tough, but you just have to kind of, accept it and say she would be really sad to know that I'm wasting my life being upset and being devastated by reminders of her. So I have really kind of just tried to turn it into a positive, and I smile when things remind me of her. And I'm just so thankful for the beautiful childhood that she gave me. So it's bittersweet.
Yeah, I can imagine. Wow. I can imagine how proud they are right now.
Oh, I sure hope so. I think that my dad would have been so proud. He would have embarrassed the daylights out of me. He probably would have carried cases of my books in his truck to give away. When I graduated from Central, he would bring it up to anybody who would listen. Like, he would be cashing a check at the bank and he'd be like, "Oh yeah, my daughter's in town, college graduate." He would just bring it up all the time and embarrass me. So I think he would have had a field day with this.
Wow.
For sure.
Now, do you have siblings in the area?
I do. I have a brother and a sister, but they are, my brother and sister are 11 and 12 years older than me. Okay. So when my mother passed away, my sister and her husband, without hesitation, legally adopted me so that I could stay in Michigan because my dad lived out of state. Oh, okay. And I wanted to stay here and graduate with my friends and, be able to have a Michigan driver's license and insurance. So they immediately legally adopted me so I could stay here and finish my high school years in Gladstone.
Dude, I think you could actually write an autobiography that would sell well.
Oh man, a few people have said that. I don't think it's interesting enough, but maybe one day.
Our own lives are never interesting to ourselves, but they are to other people.
Right.
I lost my father when I was 4.5, and then my mother is still.
Oh wow!
My mother will be 89 this July, and she is still going strong. And like I said, she lives in St. Ignace. She'll be listening to this probably tonight or tomorrow.
Hi, Mom.
Yeah, she's gonna love this one. She'll let me know what she thinks of it. So I will give you her feedback because she is a litmus test.
Great. Oh no, St. Ignace is beautiful. I love it there. What a great place to live.
It is. I moved out of there. Well, I graduated from high school from there at 85. I went to Lake Superior for 2 years actually, and then I transferred to Central, and I was at Central for 3.5 years because I lost so many credits. So I was one of those people who went to school for 5.5 years, but did not get my doctorate. I got my bachelor's.
My roommates did the same.
A lot of people I know do that now, but yeah, it's a great town. I wouldn't want to move back there. I don't know why. I love going there. In fact, I'm going to go tomorrow. I'm heading downstate tomorrow, and I'll stop and spend the night with my mom. And
how nice!
And like I stop there every time I go through town. Sometimes I spend the night. Sometimes I just visit for an hour or two, then head back. So, well,
I bet she appreciates that.
Yeah, she does. She does. She's such an active woman. She works in the summer at that little Curio Fair on US 2. That little, if you're coming from like say Rapid River to St. Ignace, there's that just west of St. Ignace, there's a big tall white tower that's a little
on the right.
Yeah, on the right hand side. Yeah. She works there in the summer. Yeah. And she volunteers her time at the what's it called? It's like I don't know. It's not a shelter. I forget what it is. People donate their goods there. Then people come in and buy them. Almost like it's not a Goodwill, but it's something like that. It's a local thing. She volunteers her time there in the winter, and she walks every day with her best friend Opal, and she's still very social. Yeah, she's out and about.
Well, they need a book. It sounds like.
Yeah, they do. They've been neighbors I'm 57, so I bet 61, 62 years. They
my gosh.
They live probably 50 yards apart from each other. They're next door neighbors, but we have an extra lot between us. And they raised their 5 kids, and my mom raised her 5 because my dad died. Well, he raised us too, but he died when I was 4.5. I'm the youngest, like you, by many years. And so both families raised their 5 kids, and we all had a friend in the other family. So we've been friends for a long time.
That does need to be a book.
I know.
Oh my goodness!
And it's so funny because Opal has a walker, so she walks up the road, and my mom will see her coming out of her driveway, and she comes up with her walker, and my mom will get ready, and Opal will sit on her walker on the road in front of my mom's house. My mom will go out there and meet her, and they'll walk around the block a couple times.
Oh.
And they just talk.
I love that.
It's so
awesome.
I
love that. I would write the book for you, but there has to be a murder, so somebody would have to die.
Well, if you look back far enough in my family, you're going to find at least 4 or 5 murders. Trust me.
Oh, God. Well, we're going to have to talk later.
I could tell you the story of my great-grandparents who were murdered on New Year's Eve. It should be a book.
Yeah. We need to talk again, for sure. I need to hear this.
Well, right now, as you got your 7th book published, you got all this other stuff going. What do you consider a win for you in your life? Like, what's a victory for you?
Oh gosh, honestly, so when you self-publish, when you're an independent author, you can kind of refresh your sales daily and see where you're at. And I think every month when I get to the point that I know I've made enough to pay all of my bills and have a little bit left over, that's when I start considering that month a win. And I just feel like I am paying my mortgage from money that come from the sale of books that I wrote. And that is so surreal that I am making a living doing this. And so I think just kind of taking the time every month when I get to that point and just saying, man, I did it. I am living off of money from my books. That is it. So those are the only wins I'm looking for. I don't care about being on any bestseller lists. I don't care about being in every bookstore in America. I don't ever enter myself to win any awards. Those things are not important to me. I think just reaching my readers, keeping them happy, and keeping them coming back and being loyal readers enough so that I can keep a roof over my head is a win enough for me. I don't need anything else.
I love that. Do you love the art of writing?
Oh, yes. It's just so fun. And I love breaking rules because there are so many people that are trying to make money off of giving writing advice, but they just are like fear mongers. They're like, if you write in this genre, here's 10 things you should never do. And I love just like taking those articles off of my feed so I never have to look at them and just doing whatever I want. I try not to follow too many rules. If I'm breaking any cardinal rules, my editor will correct that for me. But just having the freedom to sit down and tell the stories how I want them to be told and doing the twists how I want them to be twisty is fantastic. It's very freeing.
Well, I can tell you definitely twisted in Delta County.
Yeah. So that's what I've become known for, the twists at the end.
Okay,
most of my books have them.
I'm not going to, no
thing.
spoiler alerts here, but at the end, I'm like, okay, this is wrapping up really good. And I'm like, what the hell just happened? I had no idea. I did not expect that. So I thought it was amazing.
Oh, thank you.
You're a bit iconoclastic, I think, and that's a good thing to have, especially with the writing brain. It's just breaking the rules, not following any certain norms, but just staying within certain parameters, of course. No
Sure.
cardinal rules are broken, but
Sure. Just
we,
being able to do what I want has been very freeing after being in the business I was in for so long.
Any chance you're going to be up in Marquette next Saturday for that? I don't know if it's a writers or publishers convention.
Oh, no, I don't do those things.
Okay.
I am antisocial. I have social anxiety. I'm an introvert. I'm not antisocial. I'm kind, but that gives me anxiety. Like when I get invited to things that are like, oh, it's just 10 of us writers getting together and talking about what we're working on. I would no, absolutely not.
No, okay. Well, good for you.
That is my nightmare. So I have learned that I can remain a people pleaser, but also have some boundaries. And it's a fine line to walk, but I need to do it for my mental health for sure.
Yeah.
I've started saying no a lot.
Well, I don't blame you. I know. I think it's a UPPAA. I don't know. It's some type of conference.
Yes.
I don't know.
Yeah, I saw it. Somebody sent me a Facebook invite to it.
Well,
but that is just not my jam.
Well, I'm going to be the speaker there on Saturday.
No.
Yes,
Had I known, I would know somebody.
I'm doing a talk on raw purpose. I think from 9:30 to 10:30 in the morning.
Just being in a group, a room like that of writers, like I would have such imposter syndrome and such anxiety. I can't that is my nightmare. That is my absolute nightmare. I can't do it.
I don't go to conferences. I don't join groups. I'm not a member of any club anywhere either. I don't do any of that stuff.
You get it.
Yeah, I do. I don't like large groups. I don't like going to concerts, even though I'm going to a concert in June because my friends invited me to go and I bought a ticket. But I don't go to conferences. I don't like loud loud noises. I don't like a lot of people.
Yes.
I like small groups.
Yeah, same.
Yeah.
The older I get, it's like I'm not even enjoying Packers games like I used to. All I think the entire time, I'm like, I would rather be on my couch where I can see where the first down line is. That is what I think the entire game.
I'm
invited to a few like writers retreats.
Yeah.
Where you just go with like a group of 10 writers. And I'm like, that is my nightmare. That is my absolute nightmare to have to talk about myself and my work with you guys for the entire weekend. No, that is not for me. I'm a solo gal.
Yeah, I am too. I made a commitment, Jamie, when I started my consulting practice. It'll be 28 years this November when I left American Express to do my own thing. And I made a commitment that I would not talk to other consultants nor read any books on consulting. At least for the first 5 years. And I didn't talk to a consultant. I didn't. Part of it, I'm like, I probably could have gotten some better advice because I started with nothing and lost, I had a car repossessed. I lived in a little tiny shack in Pinckney, Michigan. I didn't have a cell phone. I mean, I probably could have done it differently had I had some sound advice, but I didn't want to learn somebody else's techniques of how to consult and coach other people. And so it was probably 5 to 7 years later before I even read my first book on consulting. And I haven't really. I probably only read 4 or 5 in the time frame. But yeah, I think there's something about certain people they don't work well. I don't work well with big groups.
Not at all.
I'm not a pack animal.
Yeah, the same. And I think that's kind of what's prevented me from ever agreeing to sign like a traditional publishing contract. Right. I don't want to turn chapters into somebody as I go. I don't, I just want to do this on my own. And I really, really think that this is the correct path for me.
Well, it's definitely working for you. So
Thank you. Knock on wood. It's working right now.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
I can't even find any wood to knock on in this place. It's all plastic and fake wood.
Oh, no. I'll knock on it for you.
Yeah. There you go. There you go. Okay, so this is another really fun question for me. So if I wouldn't have to go very far because we're in the same town right now or close to each other.
Oh, yeah.
If I were to drive my time machine over to your place right now, we were to go back to some former, maybe at CMU, maybe when you were a child, maybe it was 5 years ago, but you pick a time frame of your life. We're going to zoom back there and you're going to sit down on a park bench with your former younger self. I'm just going to sit and observe. What would you tell your younger self? What words of wisdom or recipes for success would you share?
Oh, gosh, that is such a good question. I think really the biggest detriment has been trying to be too much of a people pleaser my whole life. And my sister, that is her biggest pet peeve, is she hates that I'm such a people pleaser. And I have always put everybody else's needs before myself. So I think if I could just go back and say, Jamie, you can still be a kind, good-hearted, kind-natured person, but also set boundaries. I think that I would have prevented a lot of heartache in my life. I was actually married very young. A lot of people don't know that. I married my college sweetheart, and that was not smart
Wow.
at all.
Those boys from Central Michigan, they've got charm, though.
That's exactly what happened. So but I think I did it because I liked his parents a lot, and I didn't want to let them down.
Okay.
I honestly think that's why I did it. So, and there have just been like a string of decisions like that in my life, in my professional life. I got promoted a lot very quickly in every organization I've been in because I know how to make my boss's life easy. I do their job. Every morning I wake up and I would think, how can I make my boss's life easier? And it's handling problems before they ever got to the boss. You name it, I would do whatever it took to get ahead in that organization and be liked and be respected. But at what cost? The cost was my mental health.
Right.
So I think that would be the biggest thing I would change in my life, is just to try to learn to set boundaries a little bit earlier and put myself first in some situations, because now that I'm doing that, I'm a lot happier. And it has been definitely a new lesson in the public eye, having to do that, because when you're in the public eye and you're kind of somewhat, even if it's just locally, a public figure, people feel very entitled to your time.
Yeah.
And they see no issue with asking you to go out of your way to do things for them all the time. And it makes me very uncomfortable. You would not believe the number of readers who think that if I'm doing a book signing in their town, I should be having dinner with them, or I should be grabbing coffee with them, or I should stop by the book club that they're having at their house, in a stranger's house, and make an appearance. And it's not just once or twice, it's all the time. And so kind of learning to have those boundaries and say no instead of being terrified that I'm going to hurt somebody's feelings, it has been a huge lesson. So I think that is the major change I would have made in my life sooner.
I think that's a great advice, because I think so many times, I don't know that I would have been considered a people pleaser. In fact, maybe the opposite. But I know in my actions anyway, but in my heart, I always had a hard time if I thought I hurt someone's feelings. And I think a lot of people out there are people pleasers. And I think that's really good advice. We can still be good, kind-hearted people and with a good soul and kind to others, but we have to have boundaries. And I think especially in your profession, in that creative profession, when you write a book and you create these characters and these plots and this, you have to give a lot of yourself. There's a lot coming out of your soul to create this. And the more you spend time doing the things that maybe drain you, the less you're going to give to the readers themselves in the end. You got to take care of your emotional and mental health probably more than most people do when you're a creative person.
It is. It's a new arena for me. But, somebody once said the only people that will be upset with you for setting boundaries are those who benefited from you not having any. And so I think of that all the time. My real friends, my real supporters will be proud of me for setting boundaries and will understand. So anybody that's upset with me for setting those boundaries just really doesn't need to be in my circle anyway. And
I think the people who invite you, they just want to be a part of your life. They want to get a slice of who, J.L. Hyde is behind the curtain, so they can see who this person who's created this world that they're involved in. And they're not going to be your real fans are not going to be hurt by that. They're not.
Sure. And most of them aren't. And I understand that. Oh my gosh, I have favorite authors as well. And I would love to have dinner with them. But the difference is I would never guilt them for not being able to do that for me. And the ones that are like, oh, come on, lighten up. It's just coffee. I'm like, okay, and you're a stranger and I don't want to end up on Dateline.
That's a really good point. You've watched too many Datelines.
Oh, yes, I have. My guard is up all the time. And I have to remind myself, I'm living in Gladstone. I can probably drop my guard a little bit now.
Yeah, I think you can. I actually lived there for the first year when I moved back from Grand Rapids. I lived in Gladstone.
Oh, you did? Oh, yeah. It's a nice, quiet place.
It is. I loved it. Minneapolis and Minnesota Avenue. I forget which one it was.
Oh, yeah. I'm right up on the bluff by the ski hill. So it's a nice, quiet area.
Oh, I know where you are.
I enjoy it a whole bunch up here.
My ex-girlfriend lived up there when we dated when I first moved here for the first couple of years.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh, yeah, it's quiet. We did have a bear a couple of weeks ago in the yard, but other than that, it's been pretty uneventful.
Oh, wow. I have to I won't say this on air because I haven't shared it, but when we get done today, but after I sign off, I'd like to have a borrow you for 5 more minutes. I want to tell you a story of something that happened to me in that area.
Of course.
You're probably going to think I'm cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, but it's a true story. I forgot what I was going to say now. But so the next question I will ask is, what's next for you? Like, what's your next thing?
So I'm writing the third and final book in the Grady Lake mystery series. That'll be out 4th of July. So I'm just finishing it and getting it ready to send to my editor right now. And then it is my first summer back home. So I'm going to take a little time off. No book signings, no public events. This is my last podcast until I haven't committed to anything else until September. So I am going to just take some time off and really enjoy being in a place where it's not 110 degrees every day. And I'm going to enjoy myself.
Good for you. So I got you right at the nick of time then. That would have asked.
Yeah. Oh, yes. Yes.
Good. I'm glad I'm the last podcast before next
Yeah,
September.
You're it. And I have one more like Zoom book club and then I'm done. Nothing else on the calendar.
Good for you. And it is fun here in the summer with the marinas and Gladstone and Escanaba and the 4th of July and the carnival fair comes into town.
Yes. I'm so excited. We have no vacations planned at all. We just have people booked to come see us.
Okay, good.
So we're having a lot of guests. We have our guest room ready. We're having a lot of guests this summer, but we are not going anywhere. We're just going to enjoy Michigan all summer long. So I'm so excited.
And I picture your house to look just like Heather Matthews' house, the way I pictured it in my mind.
I don't know if it's not quite that nice, but I do have a bar in the basement and a pool table. So what else could you want when you're a Youper?
That's all you need. That's all you need. A place to play some euchre and cribbage and.
Yes. Yep. Actually, I have cribbage night tonight with my aunts. So it's our Wednesday night standing tradition.
Do you know I don't know how to play cribbage or euchre?
What?
I don't know. Grew up in the UP.
Brian.
I know.
Well, you at least need cribbage. I don't play euchre, but we play cribbage and we play for hours every Wednesday night. We get Mueller's Pizza to go and play cribbage. True story.
That's awesome. No, I've played both twice in my life. Once I played euchre on the way to Key West with the rugby team when I was at CMU. So that was 30 some years ago.
Nice.
I don't remember that. I played it again with a friend of mine in Grand Rapids. Don't remember that because I didn't know what I was doing. I played cribbage twice at deer camp and didn't pick up on it at all. And my daughter, my son, are like, dude, you got to learn how to play this. I'm like,
oh yeah.
I'm just
it's cutthroat.
Yeah, I know. I've seen my friends at deer camp. They get pretty riled up about it. They play it in the sauna for an hour.
Yeah.
But once I get, like I told you, the last year and a half, a little over a year, I've only been in the UP about a week a month. And once I move to Marquette, that's going to change. I'll flip-flop that. I'll be probably 3 weeks up here, a week down there, downstate.
Oh, great.
So I'll get more ingrained back to becoming a Youper again. So I'll probably pick
up cribbage.
Yeah, pick up cribbage. Yeah, I do have a cribbage board. I bought it at some fair one time, where some guy was, he makes these cribbage boards, and I bought one, but I've never played it.
So you've got the required equipment. It's time to go.
Yeah, it's sitting on my bookshelf. Actually, it's been sitting on my bookshelf since I bought it. It's just never been played.
Oh, I love that.
Okay, so the final question, Jamie, is: in the past 55 minutes or so, is there any question that I did not ask that you wish I had, or is there any final message you want to leave with our bamboo pack?
Oh, goodness. No, I can't think of anything that you didn't ask that I want to bring up. I just want to reiterate whatever it is you are dreaming of doing, or not even admitting that it's your dream because it seems too big. I'm telling you, if I can do it, it is worth the try. And when you suddenly just start achieving your dreams, just things open up. Life becomes different. Life becomes more beautiful, and you could do a lot more than you think you can. And that's the truth.
I love that. I really think that was one of the more profound things I've heard in 122 episodes is when you said at the beginning, I've never dreamed of becoming a writer because that was too big of a dream.
Oh,
and
it's
now
the
you've
truth.
got your 8th book is coming out in July 4th. What do I do now? It was a stormy weekend. I'm like, okay, I don't know if I can pick up, because I can't, if I really love a book, I have to wait a couple of days before I start the next one. I just can't get into another book.
Sure.
And it was like Sunday morning. I'm like, okay, I'm done with this book. I read it Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Now, what do I do today? Thankfully, there was football.
Oh, that's the greatest compliment.
Oh, it was so good.
Thank you.
And you're one of the few authors, other than Jonathan Rand, I believe, maybe Sue Harrison, that have been on my podcast that I actually reached out to proactively. Most of them are sent to me by publishing companies and ask me, they send me a list of people and I look at their books and I pick a couple that I think will be good and I interview them. But you're one of maybe only 3 that I've ever reached out to proactively. And as I was reading it, I looked back and I said, okay, I'm going to find her on Facebook and I'm going to reach out to her through Facebook Messenger as soon as I get a time. And I don't think it was very long after I finished reading it that I reached out to you. Might have been like the day.
Yeah. Oh, well, thank you.
Yeah,
well, I'm
really
honored.
Yeah. Well, I can see why the success is coming so well for you, because your writing talent is out of this world. The books are fantastic. And your personality, it's exactly what I expected. I've never met you before, never spoken to you on the phone. And I've talked to a friend of mine from Texas today. Actually, Dave Dick. I mentioned to you before he's the one who got me into the podcasting world. And I said, I have a podcast at 1:30 today or 12, whatever time it is. I don't know. And I had talked to him from 12 to 1. He goes, I said, all I know is I read one of her books. It was great. And I've looked at all her other books. They're doing incredibly well. He goes, you've never talked to her? I said, no. He goes, you didn't do a pre-interview? I said, nope. And it's very rare for me not to do a pre-interview. I said, I just know it's going to be a good show. So I'm going with it. I'm going with my gut. And it was.
What a compliment. Thank you.
Well,
thank you, Brian.
You're welcome, Jamie. And so everyone, I just want you to think of the couple of things that really that stuck out. The 2 big things, I've said it 3 or 4 times, is no matter what size your dream is, if you have a dream in your heart, whether it's just a little ember or a roaring flame, go for it. Look at what Jamie's thought of, hey, I'd like to be a writer, but I'm not going to dream of being a writer because it's too big of a dream. And now this is a local hero right here, a local success story. And now I really do believe it's going to be a national and international success story in the future. We have 74 countries listening to this right now. And I want everybody out there in all these countries to look on Amazon, Goodreads, Barnes & Noble, wherever you buy your books, eBay, wherever. I don't know where you buy your books. And look for J.L. Hyde. And I would recommend start with Delta County, the book Delta County, because I love that one. And if not, go with Grady Lake, whatever book you want to start with. But she did it. She's doing it right now. After thinking it was too big of a dream, I know all of you have a dream in your heart. I know you do. We all do. And it's made me think about things that I've been thinking about over the past year or two, of things I want to change in my professional life, some dreams I've been thinking about. And when she said that, because facing imposter syndrome and all the things that I face at times, fear of success, I sometimes put these big dreams on the back burner and say, I'll get to it next month. I'll get to it next quarter. I'll get to it next year. And this one inspired me to think, wait a minute, it's not too big. I can go for it. And also, so many of you out there are people pleasers. I know people who come to this podcast. You are looking to improve your life. You're looking to find hope. You're looking to find inspiration. And sometimes people like you are people who can be people pleasers. We tend to want to make people like us. We tend to want to make people better off in their lives. We want people to be better off because we're in their lives. But remember, you can be a good, kind-hearted person, like Jamie said, and still set solid boundaries. You got to keep your mental and emotional health intact at all times. Otherwise, if your tank's empty, you've got nothing left to give anybody else. So great stuff today, Jamie. I'm so glad I was able to get you on before you take your summer reprieve here. And definitely a much deserved summer for you.
Oh, thank you, Brian. I appreciate you so much.
I appreciate you, my friend. So again, thank you. You can stay out for just a few minutes after we're done. I'd love to talk to you for a few minutes. In the meantime, Jamie, thank you for being such an inspiring guest on the Bamboo Lab podcast.
Oh, thank you.
You are a true gift to the UP and to the rest of the world.
Oh, thank you, Brian.
You're welcome. All right, everyone, we're signing off. We'll talk to you next week. Please hit that like button. Please rate and review us. And please share this episode with 3 people you love, because there are 3 people in your life just like you who have a dream that they've been putting off, and they can hear Jamie's story and really find some inspiration. So remember, J.L. Hyde, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, look for her books. I would recommend the first one highly, and I know the rest are just as good. In the meantime, everybody, until next week, please get out there to strive to give and to be your best. Please show love and respect to others, but also to yourself. And please live with purpose and with intention. I appreciate and love you all.